In most situations, when someone pulls out a Ouija board, people have one of two reactions. Some blow it off, it's just a silly board game, Hasbro owns the rights, for fuck's sake. People take this kind of stuff way too seriously. The second reaction is a bit more visceral. Those people are repelled, some throw up the sign of the cross, some would knock over an already unsteady toddler to get away from the thing. To those people, you might as well be telling them you're taking them on an all-expenses-paid trip to hell with a parade of face-melting demons to welcome them. I personally think both reactions are entirely valid. Neither of the above reactions have been able to stop some curious characters from having little chat with alleged otherworldly figures. Some are looking for answers to some of life's biggest questions, some just want to communicate with loved ones who have shed their mortal form, and others use the board for more malevolent reasons. From the time a Ouija board was implicated in an incident of mass hysteria in a group of Colombian schoolgirls, to that time a mistress convinced another woman to kill her love rival using the board, it's about to get a little creepy in here, so stay tuned. Real quick before we get started, welcome to Creepycassettiyt, your place for horror in reality and beyond. I'm Dee, and on the channel we talk about dark history, weird mysteries, strange tales, and true crime. If any of those things are of any interest to you, then kindly smash the subscribe button and ring the bell next to it so you won't miss our semi-monthly chats. And if you like the video, let me know by giving a thumbs up and share if you think you know someone with similar taste. Now let's talk Ouija. I was trying to catch an exact date, but the story popped up around March of 2023. We don't have much information, trust me, I'm really considering getting a VPN just to have access to news stories directly from their country of origin, but I digress. A group of 36 girls at San Francisco de Asís School in Timbiquí, Colombia, gathered for a little experiment in contacting the other side. Some reports state the girls were playing with a pre-made Ouija board, while others think they created one with pen and paper. A game some of you might remember from a few years ago, Charlie Charlie. But if you don't remember, Charlie Charlie is a game where 4 sections are drawn on a piece of paper. Yes and no are drawn diagonally twice in those sections. 2 pencils were used. One was placed in the center of the page and the other was placed on top. The top pencil was balanced at its center point. The people playing would reach out to an entity they called Charlie and ask the makeshift board some questions like a Ouija board. The game uses ideomotor response to subconsciously move the pencil around to get your answer. Also like a Ouija board, the people playing are attempting to contact an otherworldly entity. Well, at some point during the session, the school's rector came out and sprinkled some holy water on the girls and chanted a prayer. Suddenly, one of those girls broke out into a fit, which this is just how it's described. I'm not exactly sure what this fit entailed, but we know that a couple of girls gathered to comfort their classmate, and those classmates were next to experience symptoms. Those symptoms were fainting, temporary vision loss, and anxiety, which anxiety as a disorder has its own set of symptoms, so I'm not really sure what they mean by anxiety. I know for me, it could be anything from uncontrollable crying to heart palpitations, but everyone has their own experience with the anxiety demon. And again, we only have small details about the incident in general. School staff and parents transported dozens of the girls to a local hospital. Hours later, most had been released and were doing just fine, while some were still experiencing symptoms hours to days later, and we don't get much of an update beyond that. It might be a little shocking to some of you that this is not even the only story coming out of Colombian school with students having been taken to the hospital following encounters with a talking board. In another story out of Galeras, Colombia, dozens of students at the Galeras Educational Institution were hospitalized following their use of a Ouija board. This time, 28 students were involved in the incident, and these students shared some of the same symptoms of the above story. This actually took place in February of 2023, so a month before the previous incident. The girls experienced issues with fainting, unconscious spells, and anxiety. Staff and parents jumped in to transport many of the girls to the municipal hospital, and there really haven't been any major updates or insights provided since the incident, but again, most of the girls were released from the hospital pretty quickly. On a much darker note, on the night of December 8th, 2016, Crystal Walfell and 4 of her friends were using a Ouija board to contact some spirits Crystal believed were inhabiting her Hampton Township, Michigan apartment. Her then boyfriend, Cody Sampson, who was high on bath salts and who had also been drinking, showed up at the apartment and was disturbed by the scene. Cody attempted to tear the board from one of the friend's hands, but he let it go after the friend confronted him. She immediately put the game away, and Samson, still irate, started an argument with Crystal, threatening to kill her. He very nearly kept his promise because a couple of minutes into the argument, he headbutts Crystal and stabs her in the back. Her friends managed to pull the two apart, and they urged Crystal to go seek medical help at the hospital. She went with some reluctance. And boy, was that a good call on the friend's part, because the knife punctured one of her lungs. The incident was reported to the police, and when they came to the hospital to interview Crystal, she was on an oxygen machine. They asked her about the injuries. She told them she had fallen in a barn. And of course, the police didn't believe her, and they questioned her friends. Her friends told the police exactly what happened, like the excellent friends that they are, if you ask me. She was not going to give Cody up. She allegedly became a little belligerent when she was told she could not see Cody anymore, and she went as far as to blame herself for the stabbing. Once the police collected the statements from her friends, they went to pick up Cody. Around the time they were set out to locate him, his parents were contacting 911 to get Cody medical assistance, as he had just kind of stormed out of their home and they thought maybe he was going through some kind of crisis. Just a few minutes later, 911 was called again after a passerby noticed a GMC Envoy was in a ditch and it was pretty busted up. They set out and they found Cody in this ditch with the car. He told them he had a patch of black ice and slid in. They arrested him at the scene. A Smith & Wesson knife that still had blood on it was found in his possession. He told the police that he'd gone to Crystal's apartment to pick up his dogs and hadn't even seen her while he was there. He admitted to having had a Four Loko, which is an alcoholic beverage, before driving to the apartment. He also told the police, Ouija board is a game that should not be played at someone's house. It's a game for Satan worshippers. After some questioning, the police charged Samson with single counts of assault with intent to cause great bodily harm, less than murder, assault with a deadly weapon, and domestic violence. He pled guilty to assault with intent to do great bodily harm, then murder, malicious destruction of police or fire department property, and domestic violence. The malicious destruction charge actually stems from a case he was on bond for when the incident with the Ouija board occurred. His bond restrictions at that time were to abstain from drugs and alcohol, and he was not allowed to possess a weapon. Clearly, the Ouija board incident was a violation of both of those restrictions. He was sentenced to 3 concurrent terms of incarceration. The conviction time is on a sliding scale. He could be in jail anywhere from 7 years and 93 days to 14 years and 93 days. And for the darkest story in this video, we're going to be discussing what was called the crime of the century. On March 6, 1930, 12-year-old Henri Marchand Jr. returned from school for the day. When he entered his family's home on 576 Riley Street in Buffalo, New York, he found his mother sprawled beneath the stairs on the first floor landing. Henri ran to the nearby museum where his father, Henri Sr., and his 2 older brothers, Paul and George, were creating dioramas. The 3 men and the younger Henri ran back to their home and they contacted authorities. Initially, it was suspected she had stumbled down the stairs, the victim of a tragic misstep. When the medical examiner examined Clotilde Marchand's body, he found bloody gashes, caught a whiff of chloroform, and found injuries consistent with a struggle. With that assessment, her death was declared a murder. The police beelined it to Henri Marchand, who denied killing his wife, of course, but his interview led the police to 2 very different subjects. Henri Marchand was a renowned artist. He and his wife Clotilde Marchand, also an artist, and their children moved to Buffalo, New York in 1925. Henri took on commission work making models for the Buffalo Science Museum and then the Society of Natural Sciences. As part of his work, he would depict the life and activities of the Seneca or Cayuga people, putting him in contact with many beautiful women from the tribe. One of those young ladies was Lila Jimerson. She was 35 years old and she modeled for Henri. What should have been a professional relationship became an affair. The papers from this paint Jimerson as an obsessed mistress, wanting to keep Henri to herself. There were times when Marchand's work brought him to the reservation for overnight visits. He often brought Clotilde with him. While he worked, she collected mushrooms and sketched the countryside. Jimerson used Clotilde's propensity to collect mushrooms, which she believed were strange, hellish vegetables, to aid in convincing her 68-year-old friend Nancy Bowen that Clotilde was a witch. Nancy Bowen was a recently widowed Seneca healer. She was still grieving the loss of her husband, Charlie sassafras Bowen. Jimerson used her grief to convince Bowen to use a Ouija board to contact her husband and help her understand why he passed. Jimerson manipulated the planchette to convince Nancy she was speaking with her husband. They asked who killed him. Not only did the board point to Clotilde Marchand, it spelled out her address, 576 Riley Street. Jimerson told Bowen that she knew Clotilde, relaying the information about the collected mushrooms, pointing to these actions as partial proof that Clotilde was a witch and she was practicing black magic. Not long after the seance, Bowen started receiving letters from a Mrs. Julie, a woman who claimed to also be a witch and identified Clotilde as another witch, stating that she had Charlie killed out of jealousy. At that point, not only was Bowen convinced that Clotilde had killed Charlie, she was also convinced she would be the next victim. And I'm not quite sure how that makes sense, seeing as Bowen and Clotilde had never met in person prior to the upcoming events, and what reason would she have to target the Bowens? Lila and Nancy formed a plan. Lila would keep Henri occupied by pulling him away for an early afternoon ride. While they were riding around, Bowen entered the Marchand residence and in broken English confronted Clotilde, accusing her of being a witch. The two ladies got into a scuffle. Clotilde was a fighter and she was not going out without a fight. Bowen managed to subdue the woman by attacking her with a hammer. It was that pummeling that caused the deep gashes found by the medical examiner. Once Clotilde was out, Bowen finished the job by stuffing a chloroform-soaked cloth down her throat. She left after the attack, but not before collecting Clotilde's blood-stained clothing and the earpieces from her glasses. Lila Jimerson and Nancy Bowen were taken into custody and put on trial twice. The first trial, Henri Marchand took the stand, admitting to the court that he had engaged in intercourse with Jimerson. Scandalous AF for this era, scandalous for any era really. He said he often engaged in these extracurriculars with his models because it made them more comfortable posing nude for his art. She was just one of his many paramours, and he considered the extra activity professional necessity. He claimed Clotilde was supporting of these trysts because it was for his art. I rolled my eyes so hard reading this little note. My eyes are still recovering from being stuck at the back of my head for so long. But I digress. When it was time for Jimerson to say her piece, she was not able to as she was hospitalized due to a respiratory condition, and the judge declared a mistrial. A year later, the second trial took place. This time, Jimerson stated she'd fallen foolishly in love with Marchand, and I'm betting she felt pretty darn foolish considering in the year between the trials, he had already taken Clotilde's 18-year-old niece as his wife. But she really laid the blame on him. She testified that Henri said he was tired of Clotilde, and she thought getting her out of the way would make him happy. In the end, Henri was never convicted of Clotilde's murder, Lila Jimerson was acquitted, and Nancy Bowen pled guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to time served. Now, this case was a lot more detailed and complicated than I could encompass in this short segment of the video, so feel free to review the case yourself. Do be conscious of some of the language used, especially when it comes to language surrounding Indigenous people. It was disturbing to say the least. The narratives that were being spun around all Indigenous peoples because of the actions of one misguided individual, disgusting. This is a case from the 1930s after all, so be conscious. But that was it for this wild ride. You can tell me your thoughts in the comments. Always love to read them. Until the next time, take care, much love, bye-bye.